Okay. Well, here's my good friend Doug Jernigan. We've been friends all of these years. I think the greatest pedal steel guitar player in the world, and I got him up here, all the way up here in Cana, Virginia, to play dobro on world champion fiddler Mr. Buddy Pendleton CD. The title of the CD will be Buddy Pendleton and Friends, and when we got to talking about who we needed to get to put the dobro on it, I told him that I was a good friend with Doug, and of course nobody ever believes that. But I'm gonna prove it to him this morning when Doug gets up there and does his thing on there. But Doug has played with everybody: Paycheck, Fern Young, Jimmy Dickens, the Virginia Boys, everybody. And Doug, who do you think, who is really your favorite of the? I don't want to put you on the spot because you don't want to say who's your favorite. But other than me, other than the years that you worked with me, who's your favorite?
Well, I'll have to say I can't just put it down to one. I liked Johnny Paycheck. I enjoyed playing with Farron, Jimmy Dickens. Paycheck would be probably my favorite. I worked with him almost 5 years. Jack Green, I really like Jack's a great singer, and worked a little bit with Dottie West through the early 70s. And I came to town. I worked with a guy named David Houston, and a real good singer, ballad singer. But if I had to put it all in one, I'd probably say Johnny Paycheck was the most talented. He could go to the back of the bus and write a top 5 song, you know, out in the middle of the desert. He'd come up and sing Mr. Lovemaker and go back in and record it. And he was a great writer as well as a great singer.
Yeah, I liked. I got to work a few days with Johnny with Paycheck, and I really enjoyed it. When I was running the band for the old tailor-made opera with Mr. Farley Taylor, I got to work a few days for Paycheck, and I really enjoyed them. But Doug, you grew up in Pensacola, Florida, and left there when you was a young man, and first went to Albany before you came to Nashville, right?
Yeah, I got out of high school, 18, and played around Pensacola at a couple of nightclubs for about 3 months. Then I went to moved to Albany, Georgia, and stayed there about 4 or 5 months, and I met part of George Jones' band. I was working with a local group. We opened for George, and guys, the Adams boys, Don Adams, Arnie, and Gary, and then when they left George a couple months later, I moved on up to Ohio and worked around Ohio with them before I got drafted into the Army, and then got out of the Army in 1967 and moved to Nashville in 1968, and got a job with David Houston, and then worked a little bit with David, and then Jimmy Dickens, Farron Young, and worked almost a year with Jim and Jesse. I enjoyed that very much. That was they were using steel, pedal steel, and they had a song called Diesel on My Tail, and I think Weldon Myrick played on. And I played on one record, Freight Train, and so I worked almost a year with those guys. Then I moved back to my hometown of Pensacola for about 3 or 4 months, and then the last part of '71 I moved back and been there ever since. I went back and worked with Johnny Paycheck almost 5 years. But I enjoyed working with all the people. Jim and Jesse was quite different from me. I played quite a bit of dobro and also pedal steel on that band.
Well, that's great. That is great. It'll bring back a lot of memories to you today to be working bluegrass again. I really enjoyed the years that you came down to Jimmy Powell's pedal steel conventions down in Blountstown, Florida. I really hate that that's not going on anymore. I wish that someone in that area would start up another. Doug plays a lot of pedal steel conventions, and they are a lot of fun to go watch them. They allow 5 or 6 steel players and they go to and try to play each other. And that's good. But I hated that all stopped, and maybe it'll start back again. But I'm just going to ask you one more thing I was curious about, and then I believe Chris. We're being interviewed by Chris McKinney, and she does a lot of work for Summer Sky Productions, and she is a great. She really, I like the way she does her business there, and but she wants to ask you a question or two. But I was going to ask you, Glenn Davis. He always talks about Doug. Glenn's one of the greatest drummers in the United States or in the world. He retired from the opera. He's always talking about Doug. What did he call you?
Little Doug Woolley. Got that when we worked with Jimmy Dickens. We had a big time. He'd got a hold of my bar one time out in California, and we was all cutting up, had a day off, and he threw it out in the swimming pool. And I had to go down and put on my trunks and go get it. But Glenn was quite a cut up, but he was really a great drummer. He was a good time, and as a matter of fact, that's how I met you and got to work with you in the early '80s down to National Bridge, Waynesboro, Tennessee.
Good old days, good old days.
Yeah.
All the Davis boys, great musicians.